When work is done with stillness, the sense of burden fades away. The way that I feel about being in my spirit and being present is like, this is like a secret to fulfillment and to peace. Wisdom can only be found from stillness. That's where we are truly taught deeper life lessons. This practice of being more present and being more aware, it is a spiritual gift that every single one of us is meant to develop. And that gift is called the gift of discernment.
Acting on emotions as guides to truth. Stillness. Surrendering to what is. Seeking. Using my gifts with purpose. Light. This is the emotional blueprint.
Now, what's unique about the emotional blueprint and what we've been talking about is the common belief among even some experts today. They say that all of our emotional suffering comes from thoughts. And that's a misunderstanding of emotions. Certainly a lot of the emotional suffering that we experience comes from thoughts. But there is quite a bit that is stored from experiences and other things. So this is kind of a cool I think a little bit more complete view on how to suffer less. It's not just an emotional paying attention to emotions, but the next level that's always, I think, a good starting point to start to do that. But the next level of practice of this to make your life start making your life so much easier is to see the suffering before it takes root. Is a really powerful. And this practice of being more present and being more aware, it is a spiritual gift that every single one of us is meant to develop. And that gift is called the gift of discernment. What is the true nature of our spirit? It is to be able to discern truth and error, darkness and light. So we're meant to develop that, and being present is a really important way that we do that. So let's finish that quote about being present. Give your complete attention to what you're doing. When work is done with stillness, the sense of burden fades away. When work is done with stillness, the sense of burden fades away. Consider the Zen masters. They move through each task with steady, deliberate ease, embracing every action without resistance. So it's a good way.
I love that.
It's cool.
And I can attest, like anytime that you just like focus in and your thoughts go out and you're just doing what you're supposed to be doing, like at your work or whatever, man, the time goes by differently. You feel better about yourself. You get a better attitude towards other people. It's just like, it's so easy to see the people who aren't doing that, who aren't just like focusing on the work they're doing. Their mind is always talking about something outside of work or something else that's going on. And you can see how much suffering they're in just being there that day. I think, working at FedEx, I got to see a lot of different people doing that all throughout their shift, not being able to focus on, it's the easiest job ever. You're just putting boxes into a trailer and you're making it look like a Tetris game. But some people will lose their minds because they're never accepting the fact that they're there doing that job. And it's suffering that they cause for themselves.
That's really good. Let's talk about one more practical application that is probably pretty important, and I think is going to maybe answer some questions for some listeners as they hear us talk about this. So, okay, we're talking about presence is intentionally not thinking. Okay, so we've talked about this practice before, but it's also going to be important. So let me backtrack. Now, not all thinking is bad. Most of it causes us suffering. But let's just think about like, okay, what are the actual benefits of being able to think, or what are the purposes of being able to think? So one of the first purposes of having a physical brain is so we can solve current problems. So flat tire, cool. I can intentionally channel my thinking to call AAA, whatever. Okay, so problem solving. It's also really valuable to plan. So planning. And then the other main purpose or benefit of thinking is reflection. Now, what's really key is the problem solving kind of takes care of itself because that's a present moment thing. But the planning and reflection, you need to have set times in your week where you do those things efficiently so that you can be present. If you're not taking any time to plan, if you're not taking any time to reflect, you're not being true to it's a self-betrayal because your spirit needs to channel the thinking to, if we don't reflect and we don't plan, then we don't progress. In at least we don't progress in probably the rate that we are meant to, we should say. So planning and reflection is super important. So have set times, whatever that looks like. You can experiment, but I as a starting point, I would definitely recommend like a little bit of a daily planning. It only can be 5 or 10 minutes, but you plan out the next day. You also need that time. We've talked about this before, of this kind of emotional check-in or this check-in, where if you do have a strong thought or an emotion that is bothering you, you have a place to put it so you can revisit it later, and then you can refocus on being present, knowing that you're going to solve that or reflect on that thing later. Okay, so super important for us to do this while we're trying to be more present. And then the reflection is, probably, I don't know, once or twice a week would probably be enough for most people to start. But you have to find a system that works for you to honor the gift of thinking as well. Again, we just have to be intentional with it. We can't let it just drift and fly around everywhere. Otherwise, we're listening to all thoughts and then we're screwed.
Yeah. Do you have any suggestions on like things that like are more important than others to reflect about or to plan for?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll just share what I do that seems to work really helpful, that seems to be helpful. So as far as reflection, for me, I just do that. I do a big one once a week, and I give myself time to reflect. And the main question for reflection that I have is like, what is the most important thing for me to work on this week? And then I set a couple goals. And for me lately, I've been more on my purpose of fulfilling my purpose and kind of checking in with that is a part of my reflection and, connection time. But I'd say a good base is like, and if you're in a relationship, you need to have a weekly check-in with your partner of like, what's the most important things for me to work on as a partner? And you talk about that together and vice versa. So yeah, I think that is key for reflection. For planning, people need time to have planning out their next day, but they also need, like, thoughts also produce, and some of this can come from our deeper self. They actually produce things that we need to do that are critical. So for example, this happened for me today. I was in a pretty present space and I was studying, I was reading, and a thought emerged that says you need to pay your taxes on this for your house. So I'm like, oh my, because it's actually delinquent and it's reoccurring. So, it's accruing interest. I'm like, oh yes, that is. So I took 2 minutes to do that because it was something, and it came up in the right time in the right space. And then I did it, and then I went back to reading. So the planning is write down things that you need to do and then schedule time to do them, basically, so that you're taking care of what you need to, basically. So yeah, that maybe creates a little bit more balance for like, wait, like I know someone listening to this and be like, no, like think like the goal is to reflect and plan is to meet that need so that you can just be fully present in all aspects of your life. That's the goal. So however often you need to do that, some people might be so attached to thoughts that they need to plan and reflect a little bit every day. That's fine. Just put that in a window. Make sure that isn't filtering throughout your whole day, because then you're going to constantly be pulled out of the present.
Trying to do that thing, trying to plan or trying to reflect in the wrong times and all the time.
Totally.
Yeah.
So that's key. That's probably, that's good for us to mention too. Dane, do you have any thoughts or questions, man, on what we're talking about, being present and acceptance?
No, other than just the fact that I really need to work on this. So it's a really great topic for sure.
Well, I think we all do.
Well, I feel like the spacey nature of just I have that disposition to just like drift off I remember telling my a friend of mine basically that like I feel like I'm constantly bombarded with thoughts, and they're not necessarily bad ones, but it's just overly crowded, and so
right.
I have to make a really conscious effort to be present.
Yeah. So just going off what we're talking about, what I think a lot of people are going to relate to what you're saying, especially creatives like you.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon. And people that are more intellectually advanced or intellectual, that, the part of their identity that they've developed is a really good thinker.
Sure.
Or I'm a really good creator. So they lean into the thinking side way more than they probably should. Now, the benefit of that is they're intellectualizing whatever they need to with their work or creating some things. But yeah, the goal, man, for you is, or for most people in that space, is like to really be committed to this window of check-in, of the shelving, where, okay, I'm gonna try this every day. I'm gonna have 15 minutes every day at 6:00, where if a thought comes in and it's really strong or it's really taking my attention, I'm gonna write it down, or an emotion, I'm gonna write it down, and then I'm gonna revisit it at this set time. What that starts to helping you do is that starts to help you become attached to the urgency that is often attached with thoughts. Because thoughts don't just come in as this chill, sheep passing by. It's this aggressive punch to your head. Like, you need to think about this right now, Dane, or you need to think about this right now. And that is just such a lie. So the practice, the beginning practice of starting to be more present isn't necessarily meditating. It's being able to start having a place to put some of these thoughts.
Yeah.
And so that you can, maybe you find 5 seconds or 10 seconds of like, oh, I'm aware and I'm present right now. And even if it's for 5 seconds, that's great. You can start to grow in that. And, the nature of a human being is I'm just not going to do something unless I start to experience the benefit of it.
Yeah.
And that's like the message with being present is you have to start experiencing, oh my gosh, this is like a secret. The way that I feel about being in my spirit and being present is like, this is like a secret to fulfillment and to peace that I don't hear anyone talking about that much, that it doesn't seem like most people are actually living this way. Wow. Like, and when you talk about it to people that aren't, interested in, they just think it's whack and so weird. Yeah. So Dane, for you and for most people, like, that is the goal, is to just have these little 5-10 second moments where, oh, I'm breathing or I'm working and I'm not thinking, and just like this, just kind of being in that space a little bit gives you a taste of what it's like more and more. You've obviously been in that space before, but having it happen more often is like, it starts to become pretty transformational.
Totally. Yeah.
So that I think is a good starting point for most people. And then you can maybe start incorporating in the 2-minute. That's even good to try to, I'd say the beginning practice would be a 2-minute, stillness practice. And then the shelving thing, having a place to put intense thoughts or emotions as a starting point.
I think the biggest challenge for me throughout my day, and the thing that I've just been like holding off on, is that planning aspect, planning out like unscheduled time, or just like windows of times where you're not in meetings or on calls.
Mm-hmm.
That type of window is, I really struggle with, like, yeah, just like creating an intention for those times. And I think that's what the planning is really for.
Yeah.
Because there's so much I have to do. And I know that I can be getting more out of my day if I'm just planned out.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
So,
well, what's cool about what you're saying is that ties into what we were talking about earlier of like, what is the true nature of our spirit? Well, our true nature is organized.
Yeah.
It's actually organized matter is our spirit.
Yeah. So it's almost like planning is creation. It's a form of creation. It
exactly.
Totally is. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. I like that a lot, actually.
So that comes from, so that's honoring our true self when we are
yeah.
or organized
as being like a builder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Satan or the ego or whatever wants to tear it down.
100%.
Or stop the work.
Like, what are you doing? You're building this house looks like trash.
Yeah. You sure that foundation's going to stick? I don't know. It's like always doubts and more problems.
And the other thing, just to kind of bring this full circle, we talked about the benefits of thinking if they're intentional. We just talked about the planning, but the reflection, the true nature of our spirit is full of truth, and the nature of our spirit is itching to grow in light. Mm-hmm. It's a progression. That's the true nature of who all of us are, which is why real happiness comes from making progress, things that matter. Mm-hmm. That's what true happiness really is. So just go back to your comment, Dane. It's like the importance of also honoring our spiritual self with having some reflection time to work on ourselves, and those are just the planning and the reflection. Those are the foundational pieces of like who we are. And so if someone is not doing that's listening to this, like, please start there and build off of that. And good things happen.
I think that's why this whole conversation, like the idea of planning, if you like reverse engineer the whole thing, it really stems back to like who you want to become. And like you asked me the question of like why, and I've been asked that before by like mentors, and it's so important, and it's often the biggest challenge that I have. It's like I don't feel like I have a really strong ability to pinpoint like what that why is. It's interesting.
That is interesting.
I can come up with stuff, but I always feel like I'm maybe one step about like in depth away from getting down to like the real why. Anyway.
Well, dude, maybe our homework would be take some time to reflect on that this week.
Bring my journal
from a place of stillness, not from a,
yeah.
And then report back, sir.
I'll say one last, or ask/say, like, do you find, like, do you write in a journal at all? Do you like to journal?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you feel like that's like a big part of, I don't know, your ability? I mean, that's to me, that's like a pretty interesting practice of stillness, because it's like intentional
Yeah.
thinking. You know what I mean? Because it
Mhm.
requires thinking to journal. It's like, what happened? But it's like channeling that.
Yeah, it's powerful. Me personally, I mean, I think my practices may be different. I don't journal in the traditional sense where I write down all my thoughts for the day and
Things
stuff.
that happened. Yeah.
Although if you want, like, that's great. Mine's pretty like specific and organized. Like,
Love to hear about it.
okay, I
Love it.
think for me, at least right now, one of the most impactful things about quote journaling is like remembering. I've been having these spiritual experiences lately where God or my spirit has basically said, hey, like these things that you're witnessing in other people and what you have witnessed in other people, it's not just for you. Write them down. And,
Cool.
you know, I've had, you know, my, you know, part of my role, if I am in the right space and doing it the right way, then I'm basically a witness of many amazing miracles that happen in people's lives, and I get to witness it, and it has a deep impact on me. And we all, the goal for all of us, to go back to the nature of who we are as a spirit, is the true nature of our spirit is we are each a student. That is the nature of our spirit, and we're meant to be a witness and to learn. And so that's a really important part of journaling for me. Is every day is the goal to, I'm developing this book of just miracles basically and experiences that I've witnessed in my own life and other people. And so that's kind of what that represents. But on a more practical level, it's like I have 3 notes in my phone. One is planning / to-do list. So if thoughts come up or things, then I put it on there, and every week I knock those things out to stay organized. And then the other, I do have like a reflection journal where if an insight comes up or something about me or somebody that is important, then I'll write it down on there. So writing, I think journaling, writing things down is so important, period. Whatever is going to work for you, you got to write things down.
Yeah.
Whatever you want that to look like for you, you got to write things down.
There's just so many applications for journaling things. Like some people use it to get their thoughts out of their head and onto something else. Some people do it. I do it for the exact same reason that you do it. It's like if I can't remember, like obviously I'll take a mental picture of going to a beach or something, but I'll also want to take a picture to remember it. And it's the same thing with journaling and something monumental or important to me. I don't want to forget the details of it, so I write it down then and there, and I'll have that.
If these amazing experiences that we witness, if they really do come from God, or if they really do come from the source, what message are we sending when we take time to write it down? It's a great like honor and respect and a form of gratitude and appreciation, and it's just important, I think.
Yeah, it might be one of the most like one of the highest forms of appreciation and gratitude for those experiences.
Documenting it.
Think about, I mean, just think about when you're at your job, Dane or Ernest, when you're talking to somebody and you're saying, you're teaching them, or you're saying something that you think is going to help them, or you're telling them something that you think is important for them. And when they pull out their phone and they start writing it down, or they're like, wait, can you say that again?
Yeah.
It's like, wow, like,
We'll talk about connection and being present, right?
Like you feel valued, you feel like they're taking in what you're saying, like it's important.
You might even be able to trust that person because they're taking it seriously.
So just to apply that,
that's so cool.
Yeah. So just to apply that to God, the great or the sort, the great teacher teaching us through others, are we just like, oh, that was amazing,
and then skip off and do
And then,
whatever you're gonna do?
and then we go and smoke a cigarette,
Yes.
or whatever,
That was
or
so
we go
amazing.
we go and eat some chicken,
And just
and then we're talking about sports.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, what? Hey, like, so it is a powerful. Yeah.
I don't know really why I brought that up, but
You were meant to bring it up.
I was curious about it because I went for 3 years, probably 3 years of like journaling every day. And I look back on those times, on those years, as probably like some of the most poignant times of like growth and like learning.
You should get back to that, man.
I know.
Honestly, I okay, so we're connecting that. I honestly believe that is essential for you to find out this deeper why of why you want to improve in your life, and like you were talking about, that's the answer, I believe, for you. So find what works for you, listeners. But yeah, I like my system. And the other thing I've added recently that I really like is study topics. If someone's talking about something or I hear something, it's like, oh my gosh, like, or if I'm like, what do I kind of need right now? And last week I was like, what do I kind of felt like I needed more contentment, more gratitude, more stillness in my life. So those are the topics that I wrote down. So when I go and like study, or whatever form of study you want to do, whether that's Bible, scriptures, books, ChatGPT, whatever, I use all of them. It's like I don't, when I wake up, I don't have to be like, oh, what do I want to learn about again? Like, It's like I'm amped, I'm like lit up,
ready to go.
Yeah, like, because these things are gonna, like, this is what I need, or this is what I'm interested in. So don't study things you don't want to learn more about, because you're not going to learn much from it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a passive thing. So that's another, I guess, form of journaling. Or I'm in my notes app on my phone every single day. I'm throwing stuff in there.
Do you use that instead of like the reminders app?
Yeah, I do. It's just so, I don't know. I'm just used to it. I don't know. It probably doesn't matter what you use, but.
Well, we built this podcast on that. That's kind of cool. You think about.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we have. Yep. On the Notes app.
Yeah.
We're promoting Apple hardcore.
Thanks.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Apple.
Some ad dollars right there.
Yeah. Hopefully they give us some money for that. That'd be great. Okay. So let me ask you a question, Ernest / Dane. So how does it affect our world? How does it affect our external environment? How does it affect our environment when we are more still in our own life? How does our environment begin to be impacted?
I think of it as this, like, you talk about nature a lot, Corey, and I think about like the stillness of nature and how reliable that is.
Yep.
And how consistent that is. You can go there every time to feel a certain way or to connect. And I feel like we're just doing that for others when we're still.
That's powerful. So be the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's cool about being the tree, what's cool about being nature, what's cool about being still is it's a reflection. People can see themselves in the mirror of you. That's what's powerful about it, is we can provide that for people. How much do people need to see their own suffering?
Yeah.
How much do people need to see their own suffering? What's a way better way of saying, hey, you're suffering right now because you are afraid of things and you need to not do that? A way better way for them to see it is if we are completely still.
and unaffected, maybe. Then they're like, what? And then they reflect, you know?
It's very powerful. And going back to like this trusting stillness in relationships, if I'm listening with love, I don't need to wonder about what to say.
Yeah.
It will be given to me in the very moment when they're done talking. Well, what if nothing comes up? Then it means you're not supposed to say anything. And people who are trying to intellectualize you in a conversation or whatever, they don't like that. Because that's gonna in a gentle way, that's gonna cause them to look at their own deeper state. And some people don't like that. And that's fine. Like if somebody's saying something and I'm really still, this happens sometimes in therapy, quite a bit actually. And I'm really trusting this practice of not saying anything, not thinking when someone, and then they're done talking and nothing is coming up. People will say things like, are you going to say something to that?
Are you even listening?
Like I just
classic.
And often what comes up for me after that is I might say something like, I'm not supposed to say anything. And they're like, oh. Or often in these moments, inspiration does come up for me. And then something usually comes out. Why do you think nothing's coming up right now? Sometimes what I ask in therapy. But that's me as a therapist. In our relationships, we don't have to like be we be the mirror. There's this really powerful book. It's written by Ram Dass. It's called Polishing the Mirror. And part of what he means, I believe, by polishing the mirror is we let go of the pain that we need to, so that mirror is clean. There's no fog in there. So that when people see our presence, they are just fully seeing themselves. And that's a gift that we can give to people. So how else does being present have an impact on our external environment other than relationships?
It can make things like more tolerable, less scary, when you don't have preconceived notions, or if you don't let those building thoughts enter your mind as often. The world can seem a lot less frightening and a lot less invasive on your peace and things like that. You just see it for what it really is a lot more.
You said something earlier that was really insightful. You said when we are more still and more present, we realize how much we're in control, or how much we're in control of how we feel, basically. And so the other true part of the nature of our spirit is every single person is very powerful. So when we start to become more still consistently, we start to feel the power of God or of who we are. And we can't control what happens to us in our life, but we are in control of our fulfillment and our happiness and many things. There's a power behind that. And it makes me think of how that power plays a role in how things actually happen in our life. I think we are in more control than we think of how things play out in our life. And I want to share an example of how that is. So I used to get sick pretty regularly. Like I'd be out for, I don't know, a few days, a week, just kind of the normal length. But I actually would get sick in my 20s, like pretty often. And every time I got sick, I always remember feeling, not every time, but often I remember feeling like this humility, like this weakness, which kind of helped me have a more of a humble or perspective. And when that would happen, I remember this kind of happened naturally for me. But I remember like just feeling that there's a deeper lesson here. Even though I'm getting physically sick, and the surface lesson is take your medicine, get sleep, drink water. I kind of just always knew that there was a deeper lesson. And that deeper lesson would change. I remember one time it was like, Corey, you need to be way more gentle in your relationships with other people. Like, because when I was sick, it would kind of calm my nervous system down, and I would be softer with people. I'm like, whoa, like this is the way. So my point of sharing all this is everything that is difficult or a trial in life, there's always a surface lesson to it. And then there's always potentially a deeper lesson. If you learn the deeper lesson, what is the point of that thing continuing to happen? I haven't been sick in a really long time. And some people may chalk that up to whatever they want. I kind of deep down know that it's because I have learned the deeper lessons I was supposed to from being sick. And so God or the universe is like, Corey still has a lot to learn, but we'll do that in, maybe different ways or whatever. And who knows, I might drop dead tomorrow, whatever. But that sounds weird. Some people might, but that it really, I really believe in that principle. Like the power of learning the deeper lesson from something. Just think about it from a Christian standpoint, as a God, like a loving God or the universe, like the purpose of them just trying to teach us a lesson. But why do we still need to go through the same thing over and over if we learn the deeper lesson? It's not necessary. So there's a lot of power in that. I want to share another story about that happened in real life. That is just really powerful. But any other thoughts, man, on what we're talking about?
I think, no.
Dane, I'm going to come to you in a second. This is pretty cool. Okay, so I'm going to read from some of it. I wrote it down earlier. Learning the deeper lesson internally can change our external circumstances. So the story goes, Ricardo walked in on his sister Alejandra engaging in inappropriate behavior with her boyfriend in front of young children. Ricardo was pretty upset. He confronted her, saying, "This is not okay and will never be okay in front of kids." In retaliation, Alejandra called the police and falsely accused Ricardo of raping her in the past. Unaware of this, Ricardo was arrested later that day and spent months in prison, consumed by anger and hopelessness. His girlfriend, a wise and compassionate woman, visited him often. She encouraged him to reflect, saying, "Everything meaningful is created spiritually before it manifests physically." She said, "There's a deeper lesson for you. If you find it, things will change." Ricardo took her words to heart. In his solitude for him, he prayed. He asked hard questions and shifted his focus from blame to self-growth. He realized his tendency to trust blindly and the lack of boundaries he had in his life stemmed from his upbringing. So he learned this deeper lesson. He understood the importance of taking responsibility for his choices and distancing himself from unhealthy people and even his family if needed. The next day, Ricardo shared his realizations with his girlfriend, feeling that the seeds had been planted for his life to change. The same day, he received a call from his attorney informing him that all the charges had been dropped and he was now free. Was his release a coincidence? Perhaps. But Ricardo knew his suffering had taught him invaluable lessons. When he embraced the meaning of suffering, it no longer controls us. Trials can transform us, and as soon as we find the purpose in suffering, it loses its power. So inner changes often precede external outcomes. I totally, that was just another powerful story about what we're talking about. It really, I think this is kind of along the Christian in Buddhism. They talk about doing your part or doing what you need to, and then letting things come.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of an act of faith, is what they call in Christianity, doing your part. But if you know you've done your part and you've learned the deeper lesson, then you can have the confidence that there's no point in this anymore. So now I believe that it's meant to change or go away if you fully have learned the lesson. So we can't control what happens to us, but suffering is unnecessary if we learn what we need to. So the value in digging deep, and it's this flow of, in nature and in life, this flow of things responding to the growth.
Yeah.
A tree grows taller and it starts blocking the shade of another tree. What does that tree do? It adapts. It doesn't just sit there upset. It goes with the flow. It might grow a different way. It might actually talk to that tree, telling it that it needs roots to give it some nutrients, and that tree will start doing that. It's just inner growth leads to external shifts in our life. I've just seen it too many times.
Yeah.
So anyways, Dane, any other thoughts on what we're talking about?
No, when you talked about that prison story, though, I just remembering the imprisonment of Lieutenant Ridge Alconis. Have you heard of that story?
It honestly sounds made up.
Ridge Alconis?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Yeah. Just kidding. It's all fake.
That was a really good story.
I just wanted something to say. So
that was the shortest fake story I've ever heard.
Yeah. He was imprisoned for, I want to say, I'm trying to look up the details, but he was in prison for, it says 1 year because he was on duty in Japan as a lieutenant, and he ended up hiking with his family up to Mount Fuji, and he, in his like altitude sickness or whatever, he fainted while driving back home from the hike mid, just driving, and he crashed into someone and killed them. Crashed into another car. One person survived, another died from that. So they put him in prison for a whole year, but it would have been, I think, 3 years, but they fought and got local, and I went all the way to the president, basically, to try to get him out of the prison there and get him delivered to home, at least to transfer, right? And then they eventually were able to get him out completely. But I mean, they were able to basically prove and defend that he was innocent. But yeah, a whole year in prison. So that story just makes me think of I think we should have him on, honestly.
Do you know him?
So he's actually the cousin of my brother-in-law, Seek. So we might be able to
let's do it. That sounds cool.
Because imagine the amount. I mean, at that point, your back's against the wall, right? To just reflect every day. There's not much more, if you're not going to be involved in a gang in prison and have that as your
a Japanese gang, nonetheless.
Everyday motive.
I think I'd choose gang if it's Japanese prison.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? It'd be legit. Ninja stars and
major pecking order.
Ninja stars. Anyway,
ninja stars.
Oh my gosh,
that's American. No, that was a ninja.
They had ninja stars.
Yeah. Thank you.
They're all over. They're all. It'd be really cool to have him on, but I could imagine the amount of forced stillness. You know what I mean? and just the amount of reflection, or the amount of like shifting your perspective and shifting your focus and your purpose, right? That maybe went on. We'll have to ask him about all that, obviously, but yeah, it'd be really interesting to have someone like him on.
It does remind me of something kind of cool though, of like our culture puts so much value on being a good thinker and thinking well. And it just reminds me of like, what's the difference between like knowledge and wisdom? Well, you can gain knowledge by thinking, and you can gain quite a lot of knowledge by thinking and study and thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certainly nothing wrong with knowledge, but wisdom can only be found from stillness. That's where we are truly taught deeper life lessons and the truth of the way that things operate from an experiential level. The wisdom, there's a big difference. So both are obviously meant to work together.
That's what I was thinking. In tandem.
Mm-hmm. But people, this is the identity that people have that are really smart. They lean into knowledge a lot, and they're very knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm.
But again, often they're missing the mark. Let's maybe wrap up with just like a couple bonus questions that may or may not connect to this. These have been some questions that have been coming up. So one of the things that's like inevitable if you start to try to be more present and still is you are naturally going to be resistant to letting go of thought. There's a natural resistance to making that shift. Why are people so resistant to thinking less and being more present in their life?
It's kind of a tough one. I don't know. I feel like there's fear that can come into play. I'm trying to think for myself, like.
Well, let me share something that comes up for me, and then you can let me know.
Yeah.
So why are people often so resistant to thinking less and experiencing more? It's because the greatest addiction that exists is this addiction that people have to thinking. Just think about that for a second. Think of an addiction. I can't stop drinking. I can't stop smoking. I can't stop thinking. People actually believe it is who they are. So imagine asking someone like, hey, can you just stop being yourself more? And they're going to like, they're going to be so resistant to that.
Yeah.
People actually believe that these thoughts that are coming into their mind is actually who they are.
Mm.
And so they're attached. They need it. They're identified with it. This is why also people are often in therapy or whatever, very resistant to letting go of pain.
Mm.
They've identified themselves with the pain. Like, I am the pain. It's the constant thing that almost always comes up when someone is on the cusp of letting go of some deeper pain is like fear. Well, then it's like then I'm like, hey, what are you afraid of? And they're like, well, the most common thing here is like, well, I'm afraid that if I let go of this, like, I'm not gonna know who I am.
Yeah,
like who's behind? Is there anything behind this pain? It's so fascinating how disconnected we all are to this our true identity, our spirit.
Yeah.
That we are so attached to the pain, the emotions coming up, or the thoughts. So obviously, this validates that these are the pain and the thoughts are the great causes of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And Dane, go ahead.
Well, you kind of answered it, but yeah, it's like, why would people, especially like just like well-intentioned people, be afraid of letting go of something that's harming them?
It's interesting because they're obviously aware that it's harming them, and
like a harmful identity, right? That's like especially once they come to realize that it's harmful, or maybe that's where the change happens, is they identify it. They haven't yet identified it as like harmful.
Well, people usually have identified it as harmful, which is why they're stuck in this pole. But remember, Anna talked about this a little bit. She was talking about how what was the benefit she was having from all of her pain? Well, she was getting a lot of love and a lot of attention.
Sure.
And she was identifying, and it goes deeper than that. It's like this, it's hard to explain unless we go through it, but it's like, this actually is me. This has always been, think about it. This has always been me. That pain has been there for people for their whole life. So it's like, wait,
they've adapted their whole entire life around it.
It's part of who they are.
Yeah. And
so you start digging with people, and they know, obviously they are consciously aware that this isn't good for them. Like that's why they're coming into therapy or whatever, because it's affecting their relationship, or causing them anxiety or whatever. But to strip that away is, so again, the value of how valuable it is for people to start feeling more connected. Like, oh, this isn't just an idea that there's peace and stillness and gratitude and strength and power all in my spirit. Like, I can actually feel that. I can actually tap into that a little bit before I let go of this big thing, or before I start disconnecting. So yeah, to start having that experience, it gives you that reassurance. Like, oh, I'm going to be okay. Like, there's this cool thing in the background,
right?
Myself.
So it's kind of like it's the pain of losing this piece of themselves versus the pain of potentially not knowing whether or not there's somebody past that pain. And it's like, are you saying that, like, trying to do the little moments of being present will give you a glimpse at that unknown behind the pain? Is that like kind of what you...
Yeah, it can definitely serve that purpose for sure.
Yeah.
And in Buddhism, they talk about dukkha, the suffering. Dukkha is suffering and not good, but dukkha is also the thing that gets us out of suffering or into enlightenment. So we all, to some degree, need suffering to transcend and to be more in touch with our true self. Yeah. So suffering is a necessary part. And some people have actually I've seen some people do this. They actually have no context of who they really are, their spirit, but they're so sick of the suffering that they're just like, I've had enough and I don't know what's going to happen.
I'll take it.
I believe it's going to be better than what I've been experiencing. And then they let go of the pain, and then they're obviously very happy with the results of feeling more peace and, but how do you, it takes a lot of courage to do that. I'm just believing what I've heard.
Yeah.
I'm trusting in other people that they seem to feel happy and peaceful. So like, I'll just go with that and like, I'll kind of go for it, but it's a great, valuable tool to have, leaning into our true self more, to have that kind of reassurance before. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Cool. Maybe one last bonus one, kind of unrelated. Let's talk about this for a second. The question is, I was talking to this really kind of spiritually minded client the other day, and we're just having such a cool conversation. And he asked me a question. He said, how can I know? So we've been talking a little bit on the podcast, how our emotions can be cues to seek spiritual inspiration or knowledge or revelation. Emotions can be cues to do that. Not all emotions are cues to receive spiritual inspiration, but some of them every single time are. And so I just think that this would be kind of a cool thing that I actually haven't explored very much, but what emotions are cues to seek spiritual? I guess when are we entitled to receive help from the universe or God based on what we're feeling? And then when are we not? Because this is what can be powerful about emotions. It can help us to know when we can feel really confident that God will answer us. Our emotions can be really powerful, help us feel confident that nature is going to give us an answer.
Emotion, whatever the emotion of humility is.
Yeah, and so generally that's like spot on. Yeah. It's interesting because I see people, I've been through this process. I see people go through this process where they really are emotionally struggling, and then they go and seek God, or they seek an answer spiritually, and then crickets, they get nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I have a couple thoughts and I want to get your thoughts, but the one emotion that you can always rely on, that if you are feeling, it is like a promise and a universal guarantee that if you are seeking an answer from this emotion, it is guaranteed you will receive spiritual light and knowledge. That emotion is sadness. So you can use sadness as a cue, like, oh, cool, I need to receive revelation or spiritual knowledge, and I'm entitled to that just from this emotion.
Mm-hmm.
I also think, there's not that's like a solid one for sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to overstep, but the other things that I'll say that I have noticed are there also seems to be a real spiritual power surrounding forgiveness. And so if we feel guilt, like deep guilt, and we're feeling that, and we're seeking some kind of relief, I think that is pretty reliable, or you can feel pretty confident in that. That's been my experience, at least. I haven't had a ton of experiences seeing that with others, but that seems to be. And then if the other thing I've noticed is if we're really hurt, if there's a really hurtful thing that happened that obviously was not our fault, we're a car crash and our kid gets killed or something, some terrible, like we feel just so hurt, we feel that loss. Some people want God or the universe to take it all away, and that isn't the right approach. And so people are going to be disappointed with that. But I've seen people have a lot of success, and including myself, with asking questions like, after we feel the pain, having questions like, what really what can I learn from this? Mm-hmm. That humility you're talking about so basically the painful emotions, what we describe as pain, hurt, sadness, and guilt, those are great emotions to seek a spiritual source from. There's some variables with the other. It's not like you can't with the other emotions and whatever, but I think I see people too often try to defer their own responsibility of figuring things out, which is hard. If you have a consistent struggle with anxiety, or depression, that's really tough. And I'm not saying God or the universe won't help you, but there's always a certain amount of responsibility of you doing your part before you try to pass it off on,
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was an interesting question, but those are just some thoughts that I've noticed or that I've had about it.
I think those three things specifically, if I think back in my life, those ones are like the ones I've almost always gotten answers for or felt something about. I think it's just so interesting.
Cool. It is, because I think people have a hard time with like, wait, is there any rules to this? It's like, well, kind of, but we don't want to overstep any of that. But like the painful emotions, like expect support and help if you seek it. Sadness is like a guarantee. I know that for sure.
Yeah. We even talked about it with my dad.
It's like, it's a guarantee, which is pretty cool.
If you have benefited from this podcast in any way, it would mean the world to us to have you subscribe, to allow us to keep it going and bring on inspirational human beings.